Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So excited to be on with you. We're here to talk about how misogyny isn't just coming from men, and it's not only happening online. It's getting embedded into women's minds too, and it's showing up in the way that we relate each other. And Vylma and I wanted to have an open, honest conversation about that because we feel like women have to be talking about this or we're going to be in real danger. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Vylma, for being here today. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself and get us started.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Vylma V. I am a recently certified meditation teacher. I'm a radio host on 94.1 KPFA Radio, and I'm an attorney who's not practicing, and a mother of two. And I'm very interested in this topic. I'm interested in creating stronger bonds between women. I think men are literally, I don't know what they're doing to the planet, but none of it's good. So I really do think that women need to shore up our own networks and our connectivity so that we can sort of wrestle back the power that's just being lost to a lot of misogyny, a lot of patriarchy, a lot of force and fear. So I'm excited to have a conversation with you. I think it's always great for people to try to relate across differences. So I hope we can do some of that today.
Yeah, and what would be some identity markers you have?
Yeah, that's great. I was born in New York to Puerto Rican parents. I'm Puerto Rican, but I've lived in California for a long time, so I think of myself as Calorican, not New Yorican. I'm a mother, and I'm definitely a spiritual seeker person too.
Yes, and I love that. I love that so much. So I'm Karen Fleshman. I'm the founder of the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition. I am a white woman. I am a middle class. I too am an attorney, but I don't practice. I am the mother of two as well, a boy and a girl. So that's very interesting. How what I profess publicly, and then how do I actually role model that in the home? How do I um, raise my children uh, in a liberatory way toward all humanity? And I'm also the caregiver to my mother, so we have an intergenerational household. And I'm very, very passionate about healing the racial divides among women so that we can unite across difference and secure our collective safety and freedom. And I want to be clear, I don't say that misogyny is something that women have to solve. I mean, this is something created by men, perpetuated by men. But I do know that we get internalized misogyny and we can perpetuate it too. And that's what we want to focus on in this conversation. And we also want to invite everybody, I'm sharing the link in the comments, to get active in the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition. And in particular, Vylma and I are going to be doing a 5-day sisterhood intensive next month. And we would love for you to join us for that. It's 5 days of taking decisive, bold action to heal racial divides between women, so that we can unite across difference. And I'm super excited to start 2026 on that. But let's talk about, Vylma, what is going on right now in our society? In what ways do we see this misogyny manifesting?
Well, I think many women anyone who has an Instagram account or an active TikTok account can see in their comments, often the awful comments that come through, particularly about, how women look and what they're saying. So we always getting that sort of not too positive feedback many times. And I think there's also a current in the politics right now between blue and red and left and right, where I think men are particularly confused and trying to put women back in their place. I'm not sure, because there's that whole trad wife thing that happens, and women should be back at home and having kids and not heard. And I think there's a lot of religious undertones that's happening around that too. So there's a lot of this coming at us that prevents us from being our full individual selves. And we may not fit into a box. You know, I know you and I know myself that we have a lot of different areas that we are interested in, that we excel in, or that we just want to explore. And I think the culture right now is trying to control us in ways that we haven't seen in a long time. I believe, and I still can't get over it, that, you know, Roe v. Wade is not the rule of the land anymore. I mean, we have literally lost our reproductive freedoms. And for many women, it's still sort of an abstract idea until you are suffering a miscarriage and you can't get the right care, or you find yourself pregnant and you're in a red state. I mean, I really think that the effects are felt unevenly, but we're all being impacted.
1000%. And I reflect on the fact that the United States was already the most dangerous country among all developed countries for childbirth. And now it's gone through the roof because of the lack of access to reproductive care that is causing women to bleed out in emergency room parking lots because they can't access the care that they need due to these extremely strict abortion bans in some states. And I also think about the labor market, right? That Katika Roy's research shows that 600,000 Black women have been pushed out of the labor force in the United States since February, whereas 872,000 men have joined the labor force. And this is having a huge impact on families, neighborhoods, communities, and really diminishing women's economic power and contracting the overall economy. And you see silence. You don't see the mainstream women's organizations to advance women in the workplace, like Lean In or Chief, coming out and speaking on this. It's left to Black women to speak on this. And this is another reason why solidarity among women is so very needed right now.
Yeah, that I totally agree. And it makes me think too about younger women and the challenges that they're facing with this economy, and how so many of them are choosing not to become mothers, not to have kids. And it's freaking out a bunch of males in this society because of the, you know, not replacing enough. There's not enough consumers in the future, apparently. And I wonder the long-term effects of women deciding not to have kids and yet not having control of their reproductive rights at the same time. So a lot of them are just opting out. And I wonder just how that plays out. You know, are we going to get forced to have kids, or they're going to keep incentivizing women to have children, or who knows the dystopian things that can happen when our fundamental choices are being denied. So I totally hear you. And I think, to me, the only solution has got to be us being more in connection with each other, more in solidarity. The statistic about Black women leaving public government work, when, you know, we all know that has been a traditional way women can get, you know, good jobs in a government forum that specifically has a lot of anti-discrimination rules in it and protections that you may not find in the private sector with an at-will or what have you. You know, you usually have to be fired for cause, and all these, you know, you can't just be at will. You know, there has to be a process, a due process. So it's a lot coming at us. And again, I just think the solution's got to be us being in connection with each other and talking about it.
Yes.
Which is
and
what we're doing here, which is great.
Yes. And then we even see institutions like the New York Times. I couldn't believe it when they had a op-ed title has liberal feminism ruined the workplace. And that was the original title was have
Has women.
women ruined the workplace, and it was one white guy and two white women talking about this with this very gender specific, like gender role specific, men are like this, women are like that. What? Yeah. So this is again, we have to clear out this mind trash that gets into our minds. And I want
Yes.
to talk about how misogyny uses division among women. I think this is especially important. We're headed into 2026. It's 250 years since the Declaration of Independence. And one of the things that has really stood out to me as I've gone back and studied US history is how the patriarchy was baked in from the very beginning. How these white landowning men, which of course, whose land did they own? These settler
Stolen.
colonialists who stole Native people's land and infrastructure and genocided them, pushed them off, and then imported Black people in chains to work the land for free, and then imported white women to be the police basically on the plantation and to give birth to the next generation and teach them in these ways, well, so that the men could be off, writing the Declaration of Independence or fighting in the Revolutionary War, or et cetera, et cetera. And you see how they tied everything together in the legal system. Who could own property, the laws of marriage, the laws of wills, trusts, and estates, and created this whole system that was rooted in maintaining this racial gender hierarchy.
Yeah, it reminds me of that women couldn't have their own bank account or credit cards. This is recent history. I think it was in the 1960s and 70s when those laws were changed. So I think, yeah, it's been baked in. It's been part of our fabric of the US society. And it can seem overwhelming, but I think that working, in solidarity is really the solution.
100%. Because they have intentionally pitted us against each other, because they knew that if we were to unite, we would totally outnumber them. Plus, we are the worker bees. We are the people who get stuff done. They depend on us to be the caregivers and all of this stuff. And if we instead applied that to changing our society for the better of all people, and I want to be clear, I love men. I have nothing against men. I am not I am not anti-man. I am who I am because I have wonderful, actually white men, my father, my brother, many teachers and mentors who I've had who have been extraordinarily kind and really encouraged me in so many ways and supported me in so many ways. So I'm for the liberation of all people, and I
Yeah.
think, like as Bell Hooks so beautifully teaches us, that men are harmed by patriarchy too.
Yes. And I was just, when you were saying that, I had bell hooks in my head as well, thinking feminism is for everybody, for sure. And I think it is almost, we have to say the obligatory statement that much we do love men. I love men individually so much. I have been married for 30 years to a wonderful, wonderful man. And I have two sons, two young men, 18 and 23, who are musicians and um, just very thoughtful and smart and funny guys. So I love them too. As a whole and as a group, I'm very concerned. I'll say that. I love individual men, but I'm worried what they are doing together in many different sectors of society. And even what you were saying before about the workforce, not only in the government ranks, but even in our military ranks, they've Hegseth and his crew have stripped some women of some very powerful positions, and it seems simply because they are women, and
Yeah.
they're making it sound like you can't be a warrior. I mean, it's not for me, but there are some women who really thrive in the military and want to be part of that, and have shown over and over again that they can be just as good leaders and good tactical and strategic. And it's just mind blowing to me how easily some men dismiss us and don't see us as valid equals. I think that's one of the biggest problems. And also with that is many times white women fail to see the equality too with women of color. You know, Black women, Latino women, Indian women, Arab women. I mean, there's such a long history of Iranian women being badass feminists and fighting for their rights and fighting for being seen as equal. And I think that white women need to get in formation with that and not try to separate themselves out and try to think that there's, you know, by virtue of their color of their skin or their background, that there's a hierarchy among women. And I really reject that.
I reject that too. And that is my lifelong work with white women to encourage us um, to get us to unlearn our white supremacy and our internalized patriarchal beliefs that cause us to behave in this way, and to learn new patterns of relating across difference as equals. What I always come back to is what Audre Lorde taught us, that the reason why women's progress has been so limited in this country, the reason why we did not get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified, is because we have no patterns of relating across difference as equals. And she said, we are going to have to be the ones to create those patterns because we don't have any role models to follow. When you think about, the movement to get the right to vote, which started really earlier. Like people say it started with Seneca Falls, but it really started in the 1820s with Black women advocating for women and Black people as ministers, public speakers, calling for equality and freedom of all people. It took 100 years to get the right to vote. And of course, we all know the history that during that movement, white women treated Black women as second-class citizens, made them march at the back, imagine, and ultimately sold them out. Ultimately, they convinced the Southern legislators to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment by saying, okay, I ratify the voting rights by saying, give us the right to vote and you'll double the white vote and you can keep the Jim Crow in place. And so we'll institutionalize white supremacy. Imagine how much more powerful if we actually got the right to vote for all women in 1919. We would be in a very different situation than we are now. So but I also want us to be clear that we are this division among women is not a personal failing of women. It is a societal thing that has been institutionalized generation after generation in the laws, in the culture. But that doesn't mean that we who are privileged by it, we have the responsibility now to recognize that and to break away from it. But I don't want it to turn into another, way that women feel bad about themselves, because this is not,
we have a lot of that. We have enough of that.
We have enough of that. Exactly. Let's talk about why women need each other right now. What do women lose when we isolate and try to handle what's going on alone?
Yeah. there's nothing like a woman's touch, if you ask me. I mean, I know a lot of professional women. Often when I was busy practicing law, more would talk about how they would love to have a wife at home, someone doing all that mental load so they could just be the badass lawyer they are. So women just make things, like you said, get shit done, and think have a lot of that mental load. That women for generations have been the ones who like do the holidays, keep the family connections together. I mean, they marry men, and sometimes they become the person who buys the mother-in-law the gift, or says, "Hey, remember your father's having this procedure. You should go stop by." They become this, the kinship connectors. Um, I just, it's funny to me that we have division, because I feel like my life is richer the more women I have in my life, and the more women I have calling me and looking for me. And when I don't have that, when I'm really wrapped in my family and my sons, I'm just like, what's missing? Oh, I haven't hung out with my girls for a while. And having raised my two sons and my partner, it can be a very testosterone heavy household many times, where eating is like um, a sport almost, and all the things, like just the energy of men, which I love, but the energy of women it's something that, unless you find it absent, you miss it so much, because you can take it for granted, is what I'm saying, until it goes missing. And everyone who's had a close family, and then maybe mom passes early, and sees that instantly, the hole that's left, because like, where's the center? Even though we are a patriarchal society, I think the matrilineal that line, it just exists under the surface. It's almost our roots, notwithstanding what the culture tries to put. And it's so valuable. And we just need to affirm each other about that, because a lot of times, because so much of it is unpaid, and we live in capitalism and everything is tied to money. So if it doesn't have a zeros after it, it's easy to be dismissed. When actually that stuff is priceless, and you just don't really know it until it's gone. And I know a lot of women who maybe had a close friend, and maybe they've had a falling out, and then when that relationship is gone, your life is just not the same, and you miss it. You miss your girls from high school or college, or as you get older, it's harder to keep those connections. And it's sad to me that we may not be as aware of how much we need each other, because of course, in a capitalist society, if you got money in the bank, everything's fine, right? But no, that's not we really do need the female companionship, the female thinking, the brain, the socialization that happens.
The
That's so
laughter.
important. Yes, the way women instantly, who they maybe have not known each other that long, but may find something in common and can find this instant rapport and connection. And then you see men who've been friends for like 5 years and didn't know that their dad was a pilot or something, where we would know instantly so much about each other. So we do need each other, especially when things get really hairy. We need the friendship and the women energy to remind ourselves, in the face of all this, of how important we really are, even if the society right now is sort of downplaying it.
Bridget says, we have the capacity to hold so much and navigate life almost seamlessly, but often then I feel really drained, like particularly at this time of the year. Like there's so many emotional expectations and things I got to keep straight in my head, and this person needs to be here and that person needs to be over there, and whoo, it's a lot. It is definitely a lot. And Bridget also says, definitely leaves a void. Yes, it is so sad when we lose those matriarchs in our family that hold things together. You really note the difference after that people don't, you have to be intentional about continuing to have family reunions and continuing to make time, not only to gather at funerals, but to gather in celebration and just out of connection.
Yes, I totally agree. And we do need each other. and we do need to support each other and fight against the patriarchal system that's trying to pull us apart.
And the society definitely wants us to be isolated from each other. The powers that be want us to be separated. And they don't want us to learn from each other. You know, I am so grateful for my older women friends who have so much wisdom and lived experience.
Yes.
My women friends who are Black, who are Native, who are Latina, who are Asian American. I learned so much from my Muslim friend. You know, I could go on and on and on. I'm so grateful. You know, obviously I love to read and I love to study, but the greatest learning comes from conversations with my friends. And that's when it really becomes clear to me. And they don't want us to learn from each other. They want us to distrust each other and disregard the wisdom that we carry.
Yes, which reminds me of one of my favorite acronyms for the word witch, which is a woman inspired to teach our collective history, WITCH, to teach our collective history. Because a lot of times we wouldn't know unless other women told us. There's a great book called Invisible Women. I think it's Caroline Credo or Christina Credo. And it just talks about how really a lot of our contributions over the years, decades, centuries, have often been downplayed. I mean, the original healers and doctors, those were women, witches, herbs, and knowing what could help and what could soothe.
Yes.
So yeah, that's one of my favorite acronyms for witch, is a woman inspired to teach our collective history, which is why we need each other, so
Yes.
we can share that history.
And I highly recommend Rosella Kennedy's book, Brave Sis, where she teaches these stories of these women who are invisible. We don't know their stories. These women who changed United States history through their organizing. That's why we need each other. Yes, definitely a lot to carry, especially during the holidays. Thank you, Bridget.
Yes.
For watching along. So let's talk about what becomes possible when women choose connection over withdrawal.
Well, instantly, I think anytime we spend time together, I know after talking to you on the phone or some of my other female friends, I often feel much better. I think that's a good marker of whether you have a good friendship, is how you feel when you're done speaking with them. So for all those women who are talking to people that are making them feel bad, dial it down, minimize it, as I would say for the V method, and dial up those women who make you feel better, because yeah, life is short, and we definitely benefit when we have the friendships that really fuel us and make us feel good about ourselves. Because I know, otherwise it can be kind of toxic, the misogyny that's been internalized, and some women can be so critical of each other and police each other, like you were saying. Back in history, that's white women's role with Black women and other women of color, was literally to be a surveilling and oppressive force, because I think their own freedom was curtailed, right? They were also chafing at the role that they were given. And women, we're as varied as any man is. Some women love to care and want to have babies, and some women want to go scale Mount Everest, and there should be room for all of us.
Yes, that's what we're for, the freedom of all people to be self-determining, and no one should tell you, oh, you can only do X, Y, or Z because you are X, Y, or Z. No, that is not true. We can do whatever we put our mind to, whatever appeals to us, and we are so different and so varied, and yeah, when I see women who are critical of other women or negative all the time, I know that that's rooted in deep self-hatred, right?
That's right. Right.
And I feel like that is why, and also the voices that they heard growing up. Oh, you have to be thinner, you have to be quieter, you have to do X, Y, or Z in order to, no, you are enough just the way you are. You are worthy as a human being, as a person. You are worthy. You don't have to change any aspect of yourself in order to have value. But we hear that over and over again, and then it's in the advertising, it's in the media, it's in the, these images. So that negative self-talk, and, oh, I'm not thin enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not young enough, or I'm not. No, we have to let all of that go.
100%. And I think that, there's so much coming at women, that when we speak together interracially, intergenerationally, and interracially, we can learn so much. I was thinking when we were talking about books, I met this young woman not too long ago in her 20s, and she asked me about the book, Women Who Run with Wolves. And
I have it right here.
Yes. And she had a copy of one in Spanish. And I said, yes, I love that book. I read it in English. And I think it's one of those books that women have to return to often.
Yes.
We do live in a culture that doesn't really celebrate us, doesn't support us in the way we really need. And we have to find those books, those people, those talks that really fill us like that, so we can turn away from folks that harm us and be confident that there are women who have our back. We need that more. It takes, when I was in this meditation course, they often talked about who's in your front row, right? Who's in your front row, which I know for a lot of people, it's hard to find that, because when you're younger, there seems to be a lot of people, including your parents and your extended family. And then as you get older, unfortunately, your parents can die off and your siblings go and they live out of state or even across the country. So it's kind of hard, I was thinking, to keep that those front row seats filled. It's something we need to keep doing. And that's why I really love this idea of interracial sisterhood, because I'm thinking about who is in my front row right now.
You are in my front row and I am in yours, Vylma. Yes. And Catherine says withdrawal isn't the answer, although it's so easy to do. That's what they want us to be, lonely and feeling powerless.
Right.
We need to do a better job of reaching out to all women, young and old, to keep each other empowered and moving forward in life. That is exactly what the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition is all about. We want to bring back the consciousness raising circles of the 70s, which the internet has been great for raising consciousness, but we need to meet up in person in our communities, right? And it doesn't have to be fancy. Invite some women, like Angela Davis was speaking here in San Francisco. I emailed a ton of women, texted a ton of women, get your tickets and I'll host afterwards. We went to go see Angela Davis speak, and then they came over. I had some cobbler, and we just sat and talked about everything that she had to say and how to apply it in our lives. And I had to kick people out at midnight. I went and drove my friend home, and I came back. They were still out on the sidewalk talking with each other. Like, it can be very simple. Maybe you don't live in a community where Angela Davis is speaking, but guess what? Many of her talks are on video or on audio that you can listen to together, or you could do something else. You could go for a hike. You could watch a movie together. You could do all these things and then have a conversation afterwards, and make sure you're inviting like a diverse circle of women to participate. And if you want more great ideas like this, join Vylma and I in January for the Interracial Sisterhood Intensive. We're going to do 5 days of taking decisive, bold action. Yes, meeting up could be at a coffee shop for a conversation, right? I don't like to clean my bathroom. So I was happy that I have a community room in my in my building where we could have this meetup, right? So doesn't have to be fancy. We're built for connection, 100%, Bridget. So important that we cultivate, and that not only that, we invite the same people that we usually associate with, because we know that our social circles in this country tend to be very socially, racially segregated. I'm speaking of white people here. Okay. White people, the social science research tells us that white people's social networks are on average 90% white, and 2/3 of white American social networks are 100% white. And this is, I believe, so harmful to everybody, white people and people of color as well, because when white people are exclusively associating with other white people, not only are we only drinking in messages from other white people, but we are exclusively exchanging what is called social capital with other white people. This can be job leads, where to send your kid to school, investment opportunities, all of this stuff that is only being exchanged among white people is a way of perpetuating the racial wealth gap. So that's why I'm like, don't only organize and invite your usual crew. Organize and break and make sure to intentionally diversify so that people can form those relationships, not only across race, but across generation. This is very important as well. We want to make sure that younger women are benefiting from the wisdom of older women, and older women are benefiting from the wisdom and lived experience of younger women.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to try to reach across, to hang out with or look for friendships with women a decade or two younger. Yes, I think, Catherine, you're right. I think it could be a resolution, a New Year's resolution, to really make an effort, because I think it does take an effort, and it's hard, because I was just, before we even got on, I was talking to Karen a little bit about, I was trying to hook up with some women that I was in a membership with. And it's just hard because they're busy, and you almost have to make an appointment just to make a phone call to have a chat. But it's worth it. And I think you organize stuff. I like to organize things. I think we need to have a mix of that. Women who organize things and invite you stuff, and stuff that you just go. And you don't always have to be the organizer, but I think you need a mix of both. So if you're not getting asked to these things, because it happens, you fall off or what have you, then organize a few and then tell them, hey, I'm trying to build a bigger network, of more of a connection. So next time your son's playing here, invite me and I would love to go. And you just have to kind of really put yourself out there. It's not quite like dating, because women are just so much easier to deal with, but especially if you're dating men or not, maybe not, who knows, I'm not queer, so maybe I could be confused, but it's worth trying to put yourself out there so that you can have the richness and the relationships with women that we really want, that, like, what Bridget said, that we're built for
Yes.
for this.
Yes, and that we can assist each other, like mutual aid.
Oh yes,
we can help each other, and we can do political education and political organizing and advocacy, which is what we need to do to get our rights back. No one's going to give them to us. We're going to have to demand them, and that's going to take unity. So you can learn about the Sisterhood Challenge and all our other offerings on our website, Interracial Sisterhood Coalition.com. And Catherine says, in search of learning from other cultures, I usually invite those folks to have meetups with me. Yes, people love to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
I remember I was really confused. I did a lot of research, read things about what is cis, what is trans, what is non-binary. And I still found it to be kind of hard to wrap my brain around. And I met a trans man. I actually heard him on the bus talking on the phone, and he was so interesting. And I just walked up and introduced myself to him, and we became really good friends. And he wound up, we went out to brunch, and this was after we'd been friends for a while. And he like basically explained it to me. And finally, it all made sense. Um, I think those kinds of conversations are very, very, very valuable. And so making time to meet up across difference is so important. Why do you believe interracial sisterhood is essential in this moment?
Well, if we want to create the new world that we know in our hearts is possible, we know it's a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-generational, where there's a place for everyone. One of my favorite quotes, which really bothers men many times when I say it, which is, there are only two kinds of people in the world: women and their children. So we are all connected. We all come from mother. We all come from nature. We all come from that stillness that's within all of us. And I love the way, and I think Karen is a great role model for this, because what you just said about meeting this trans dude on the bus, how we met too. You were chasing me after I gave a question at a forum at a book festival, and I asked a question, and it was a necessary question, I think, at the time, but I had no time for the answer because I shouldn't have been where I was at that point anyway. I was supposed to be volunteering somewhere else. So I literally ran out, and this woman's running behind me going, "Hey, wait." And I think that's what we need, that kind of boldness, Karen, which I really admire about you, is we have to step out of that comfort zone. And if you see a woman who looks interesting, and maybe you see her at the bus stop, or you see her at a coffee house, say, "Hey, hi, my name is so-and-so. How are you?" Just a few minutes of interaction and connection. You never know where that could lead to. And I think it's far safer to talk to women randomly than any man out there. So I encourage that. And I think you model it in a really great way. So I'm really pleased about that.
Thank you so much. I'm very intentional about cultivating friendship. I think it is so, so, so important. And I'm very blessed to have friends that I've been friends with since childhood. So decades long friendship, very powerful. And I like to, get new friends in the mix too. Like it really gives me so much joy. And I also like to get everybody together. I mean, that's what the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition is, right? It's a space for women of all different ethnicities and generations to share together. We have an online membership community, and then we have in-person events like going to see Angela Davis and talking about it afterwards. We have retreats. We've done Interracial Sisterhood retreat in Miami, one in San Francisco, and the most recent one was in Barbados. We really need more than just a one-off evening, conversation. We need more time together to get to know each other. And that's the purpose of the retreat. And then the online membership community to sustain and grow, so that we can become like a national grassroots organization where women all over the country are hosting interracial sisterhood circles, events, etc. And we're there to support you in doing that. And it's a combination of political education, mutual aid, and just having a really good time together. Is what our vision for the future. Enjoyed the chat. Thank you so much for joining us, Princess.
Thank
you. We are so glad you're here. Okay, so I think we should start to wind down.
Okay.
But I know women feel a longing for safety, for freedom. I lay awake at night worried about my kids. My kids have already told me there's no way we're going to have kids. I just, and I feel like I was born in 1969. I benefited from the civil rights movement. Thank you so much, Black people, for securing my rights. Thank you, Black women. Thank you, Black men. I appreciate and love you, and I'm so grateful for you. And I cannot believe that in my lifetime, those rights are being taken away. And now my kids, younger generations, have less rights than I did when I was at their age. I feel this tremendous responsibility
Right.
to build on that legacy and to get things back going the direction towards progress, the advancement of all people. And again, I'm not like, oh, let's start oppressing a new group of people. No, this is about everybody. And it was interesting, I don't know if you saw it came out that it was actually white men who were losing out on college admission due to the change in eliminating DEI programs.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because women, high school age women are doing so much better academically. They were admitting more uh, girls, and now they have to just go on the criteria of the grades or whatever. And so there were diminished numbers of white men getting into college. You're 10 years younger than me. Excellent. Well, you look great, Catherine. So the contact information is in the chat to join the Interracial Sisterhood. You can get on our newsletter. You can join the challenge. All the links are from our website. And we would love to see you in January. If you found this conversation valuable, please give us feedback. Please share it with a friend. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Connect with Vylma and me on LinkedIn. We'll be doing more of these throughout the holidays. If you have suggestions of topics you'd love for us to cover, please do let us know. And any final parting words of wisdom, my dear sister?
I love that you're such a witch, which is, woman inspired to teach our collective history. I love the way you've dedicated yourself as a white woman to racial justice and interracial sisterhood. So I'm really happy to be on this journey with you, and I'm looking forward to where it takes us in 2026. And I hope a lot of women come and, join the parade.
Thank you, Vylma. And I love and appreciate you are so enthusiastic about that mission, and you just embrace it. Because sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I of all the things, like, why did I have to pick this one?
Why is this my passion? Why?
But you continuously support me, and I really, really appreciate you, Vylma V.
Great. Same, Karen.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining
Adios.
us.
Thanks for joining.